All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today. We are very excited to have this wonderful program, Protecting Your Assets, and we welcome our very special guest, Emilee Lawson Hatch. So thank you so much for joining us, Emilee.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to be here today. This is going to be fun.
Great. So Emilee is a local attorney in town for let's see, for specifically for trusts and estates attorney. So she's got a great background in this area and can help us with some long-term planning. Emilee, is there anything else that you wanted to share specifically about your background or today's topics?
Yeah. Once you flip it to me, I'll introduce myself. I just want to make sure in timing, is it about an hour that we're planning on?
Yes, so I would say about an hour with Q&A would be great. If we go over,
Great.
that is totally fine. I think our members are very excited to hear what you have to say today and to ask you questions. So there's no hard end time. And I will
Perfect.
now turn it over to you. So thank you, Emilee.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. So I will plan on an hour and I will leave plenty of time for questions. And I even have time afterwards. If anyone wants to have some private questions, we can talk afterwards. So we're talking about long-term care planning today. And that makes me think that you probably all already know about wills and basic estate planning documents. So I'm not going to spend time on those today other than to indicate as part of our discussion what documents I recommend people have. But our agenda today, I want to start with the general cost of long-term care planning. Some of you may know this better than me because you may be paying for it right now. I want to let you know generally, if you're not already paying for long-term care, it really runs the gamut. If you're getting care at home, you really have a few different options. You can find someone who is, and we say long-term care, it means that you're at a point where you need someone to help you with things. Maybe it's managing medication. Maybe it's getting assists to go to the restroom or to make meals or someone to check on you, to do laundry, do cleaning, things like that. Maybe it's more medical and you need a nurse. Any of these folks that you get at home, you have a couple options. Either you're paying them privately, or maybe you have a long-term care policy, or Medicaid is paying for them to come in and help you. So folks charge hourly when they come into your home. If you're using an agency, it's usually between $25 to $30 an hour to have an aide come in and help you with things. If you need a nurse, it might be that, but it might also be a little bit more than that. There's organizations like Nurse Corps that if you need dialysis or something like that at home, they can send nurses out, but the cost is more. So if you can privately pay for it, that's great. If you were at home and you needed sort of round the clock, not a nurse, but if you needed like a CNA, someone who was going to be around for you, and if you were not doing it privately, if you were doing it through an agency, it would cost you about $3,500 a week to have somebody stay in your house. Maybe you'd have people cobbled together that are doing different segments of time, but that's generally about what it costs. If you're going to find someone who you don't want an agency, lots of people find friends or find someone through their church or through their community that they may pay under the table. I'm not making judgments about this, right? People, we all do what we need to do to cobble it together. And so sometimes you're paying under the table for somebody and you might be paying a lower hourly rate, because when you're paying an agency that 25 to 30, that includes insurances and some tax documents they prepare. They do some of the work for you. If you're doing it on your own under the table, you're either doing it real under the table where you're giving someone cash, or you're getting an accountant that's going to help you give that person, that caregiver, a tax document at the end of the year. So there's all sorts of iterations that people do, and it all depends on your situation and what your risk tolerance is and how comfortable you are, and the person that's coming into your home to help you. Some people want to work through an agency. Some people prefer to be under the table depending on their situation. So that's if you're privately paying. If you have a long-term care policy, I will say I do not meet people that have these very often anymore because they are really expensive. If you already have one, keep paying it because there's no, I mean, once you're in it, it's sort of like an investment. But long-term care policies are generally very expensive and they're hard to get these days. So if you have one, I encourage you to keep it. If you don't have one and you're interested, it doesn't cost you anything to go get a bid and find out how much they cost. You can Google around to find people, selling long-term care insurance. If you have a financial advisor, you can go through them or you can call a financial advisor. They're the kind of people that will get you bids on that sort of insurance. And then you can find out how much it is and you can be like, yes, or that fits into my budget, or no, it doesn't. But I think sometimes it's worth just looking at it and you know what you're saying no to. And then the third option, if someone is at home and they can't afford their care, they can't really afford caregivers, or they can just afford a little and they don't have long-term care, sometimes they're asking for community Medicaid. And you'd file a community Medicaid application with your local Department of Social Services office. And you're saying, listen, I can't pay for caregivers, but I need help. When you file that community Medicaid application, it will affect your income. They want you to contribute some of your income to that care. And there's some income and resource guidelines about it, but it's a great program. They will not provide 24/7 care. So if you're somebody who needs care at home, but you need 24/7 care, the counties, they just don't have the help for it. They don't have the ability to have enough caregivers to go out and do that, but they will give you some care. And then if you have family members or friends that can help with other care, so that's at home. A lot of people want to stay at home to get their care. I always invite people to be realistic and really look at their situation, because most people don't want care at home if it means they're going to be, living in filth and not really be able to be able to be clean and have good food and the things that they want. I'll tell you, I've been doing this 16 and a half years, so not that long, but long enough to know more than nothing. And I'll say it, like some of these facilities are very nice. Some of them provide great care. Things have changed so much about nursing homes, like in the last 50 to 60 to 70 years. And there's some really wonderful places. If you can't, if you don't want to go and you really just want to be at home, it's usually you're getting creative with your plan. If you can't afford to just pay people outright, you're getting a little creative. And I'm happy to talk to folks. With the Medicaid, community Medicaid program, you're able to sort of pick the person you hire. So if you just file your application and ask for them to help, they're going to partner you with caregivers and aides. But if you know someone, if you have someone through your community that you're like, oh, I'd love to pay them to take care of me, and they'd like to do that, they can get qualified as a Medicaid caretaker. And then the Medicaid folks will pay them to take care of you. People do that with family members or friends, but it's something to consider. So I think I've sort of exhausted care at home. So let's talk about the next step. If you couldn't take care of yourself at home, or you just didn't want to. I don't want to make it sound like if you don't take care of yourself at home, you're a loser or you gave up, because that's not the case. You're allowed to just be like, I need someone else to make my meals and do my laundry now. I'm done. I'm over it. And so the next step is generally assisted living facilities or independent living facilities. I do not see a lot of clients that go from home to independent living. Usually they're saying, listen, if I'm leaving my home, I'm not just giving up mowing the lawn and cleaning my kitchen. I want someone to take care of some other things too. So if you want to do independent, that's just like getting an apartment that you're not living in your house anymore, but you're taking care of your own things. You might have an independent living apartment that's at a facility that also has assisted living and nursing home care. And as you may know, those facilities are called continuum of care facilities. And in Ithaca, the most common ones are Bridges and Kendall. But there's other facilities too. But you can go in independent, you can switch to assisted living, and then you could go to nursing home care. But they have it all in-house. So if you go to assisted living, you sort of get to pick and choose some of the things you do. And there's a lot of assisted living facilities because they're almost all private pay. I don't know about Tompkins County, but I'll tell you in Onondaga County, there's only 2 assisted living facilities that Medicaid will cover. And that means New York State, if you don't have the money, New York State will pay for you to be at that assisted living facility. But I only know of 2 in Onondaga County. So that means the rest of them, you don't get to go unless you can privately pay. Generally, the cost for those facilities, if you're independent, it might start around $3,500 a month. Independent usually means they're still providing meals, just so you know, but you have access to some of their nice things, like a laundry facility and stuff. but it's usually around 3,500 and it goes up from there. Usually around 3,500 to 10 grand. If you need memory care, if you can still like get yourself to the shower in the bathroom, but you're a wanderer and you need memory care, so you need really that 24/7, you're probably paying that 10,000 to 12,000 a month because someone really needs to keep an eye on you and is reminding you to eat and reminding you about your meds and things like that. So assisted living condition for after assisted living is a skilled nursing home. Skilled nursing home means that you are not doing most of your activities of daily living on your own. It means you need additional help. Usually, I will say what I see is two conditions for that, are the most common. One, you're having cognition issues and you're not reliable to take care of yourself anymore. So maybe it is memory, but maybe it's other things too. And you really need someone to be watching out for you. That's when I see skilled care. And the other time is when you can't walk anymore. If you lose the ability, and they call it transport, can you get yourself from, you might get yourself from wherever you are to a bed, get yourself to the toilet, get yourself to the shower. If you can transport yourself, you'll probably stay out of a nursing home or you'll need lesser care. But if you can't transport yourself, and especially if you're a bigger person, right? And my husband's a big guy, he would need two assist. That means he needs two people to help him get up and down if he were in that condition, because he's just a tall person. He'd need someone on either side. So those are sort of the things you have to consider when people get home care and they sort of need that assist, and they need to assist. There's all sorts of lifts and contraptions you can get at home if you're a taller person and you want to stay at home with one aid. That's still possible. So that's sort of the care. And write down your questions as we go, because I do want to answer them at the end. Now, how do people make decisions? That's the next part of our agenda. How to make people make decisions about these different situations? Well, you may have been thinking, even as I've been talking about what your decisions would be, and a lot of it just depends. These are fluid situations. Our lives are not just these linear paths. Like things change all the time. It depends on if you have family who's local or people who would sort of manage your care. It depends on if you have people that could come into your house that you know. It depends on if you're a private person and what your level of privacy is. I um, I'm not going to talk about it today, but I don't want to leave out of this discussion MAID and physician-assisted suicide, which is not passed or legal in New York State. But I have clients that make all sorts of choices, and you should know that there are people out there that will support you in your choices. So that's just something I wanted to drop in. But how do you make these decisions? You know your decisions, just like I sort of know what mine are. We don't have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen, but it's based on your finances and your situation. I want to lead that into which assets would be protected, because this is a question I get a lot. Someone will say, they'll say, I know I generally have to pay privately for assisted living, but if I go into a nursing home, I want my kids, or I want someone, the charity, maybe your home is going to, animal rescue, but I want my home and my assets to pass to the people I want it to pass to. So let's talk about what that looks like. If I'm a single person, if Emilee is going into a nursing home, then and if I can't pay $20,000 a month, so a nursing home, so at home care is about 3,500 a week if you needed an aid. If you go to assisted living, we said it's about 3,500 to 8, 9, 10, 12,000, depending on how much you need care. I would say if you don't need a lot of care, you're probably right at like 5 to 7,000. If you need a nursing home, skilled nursing home care, you're at $20,000 in New York State. That's just what it is, whether you're at like the nicest or the not nicest. It might be a little more at the nicest, but it's like 20 to 25 grand. It's very, very expensive. If you're in the southern states, it's about half of that. But the reason it's so much up here is because we do pay an awful lot in our taxes for the Medicaid program. And because of that, our nursing home expenses are more, because it has to even out so those nursing homes can stay in business. So if I, Emilee, am going into a nursing home next week and I can't afford $20,000 a month, which heads up, I cannot. And if I'm going in there, I have to file a Medicaid application to say to the nursing home, listen, I want to come to your facility, but I can't afford your care. They will help me for free to file that Medicaid application. You don't need an attorney to do that for you. Sometimes people will hire an attorney to help them with the application, because what an attorney is going to do is they're going to advocate for you on the application. The nursing home just wants, they want to get paid. They're there to help you too. They want to help your person get, you want to help you get into the nursing home. They want to get paid. But there's a part of this application that is about protecting your assets, and that's what the nursing home isn't going to help you with. And so let me tell you, so if I'm going to the nursing home and I'm a single person, let's say I'm competent enough to file my own Medicaid application. Well, the Medicaid application is very short. It asks for all my biographical information. Who's Emilee? Is she single? What are her assets? What's her income? And what are her resources? Income is like Social Security, pension, dividends, money coming into my account monthly, quarterly, annually. It's my required minimum distributions from a retirement plan. Those are all income. The things reported on your income tax return are income. Everything else is considered a resource. So there's two buckets, the income bucket, the resource bucket. Resources are your house, your car, your bank accounts, and your retirement benefits. So your retirement benefits are the one on this that is not considered a resource. Because remember how I said your required minimum distributions? So if if you're 73, you're getting required minimum distributions from your 401k or 403b IRA. Those monies, even though it might be a bucket of money over there, you might have 300,000 at TIAA CREF, or you might have a big bucket of money in that retirement account. It's all protected. The only amount, and so it goes into the income bucket for retirement accounts. So income, again, Social Security, pension, RMDs from your retirement accounts, and anything else on your tax return. The other stuff are the resources. So a lot of people, you might have $1 million IRA and Medicaid will pay for your nursing home care, because the stuff in your retirement account has all sorts of protections. Well, even if you went through bankruptcy, all sorts of things that New York State wants you to be able to protect those funds. So if I'm going into the nursing home, they're going to limit my income. If they're paying for 24-hour care and they're taking care of my stuff, then let's say I'm making $3,000 of income every month between all of my sources. Once I go to that nursing home, they will only let me keep in my account $50 of income every month. 50. Like that's nothing, right? We give that to somebody when we feel sorry for them. It's not a lot of money. It might pay for a haircut. But they do not, because they want all your income, because they're saying, listen, we're paying for your care. What else do you need your money for? And we are humans, and we might be thinking, well, all sorts of things. I need my money for all sorts of things. But they don't let you keep much of your income. So let's talk. So that's the income bucket. Let's talk about the resource bucket. You have a house, you have a car. Let's say you got $100,000 in your bank account, and those are your resources. They will never force you to sell your house. As long as on the Medicaid application you say, my intention is to return home, they will never force you to sell your house. But then you get in sort of a quandary. Who's going to pay the taxes on the house, right? Because you're limited to $50 a month. Who's going to pay the taxes? Who's going to do those things? That is when we're talking about, when that time comes, we're talking to your family members who will eventually inherit this. And we're saying you might need to pony up and pay these taxes. Otherwise, the house will go into foreclosure. So again, this is me. I'm going in. I've got my house. And so on that Medicaid application, I'm going to say I've got a house, I have a car, and I have $100,000. They're going to say, okay, Emilee, you have too many resources. We will let you keep your house. We're not going to force you to sell it. We'll let you keep a car of any value as long as on the application you say that someone's driving it around for you or you're driving it around. The car has to be used for you. It can't be in Michigan with your son or daughter. It needs to be used for you. So those are the two things. And then that $100,000 in my bank account, I get to keep some of it. I don't get to keep all of it, but I keep about 35,000 that Emilee gets to keep. If I'm going into the nursing home, I get to keep that money. And that 35,000, it's approximate and it goes up every year a little bit. But that 35,000, I get to use to supplement that $50 a month for as long as I can. If I want to buy a TV for my room, if I want to use it for extra transportation that the nursing home isn't paying for, but I can use that money for other things. So that's my income and resources if I'm a single person. Now, if I'm married, which I happen to be married, if I'm married and I go into the nursing home, on that application, I show all of my stuff and I show that we have a house together, we have a car together, we have $100,000. We still get to protect the house, we get to protect the car, and we get to protect that whole 100,000, because as a couple, we get to protect about $150,000 of cash, bonds, stocks, things are outside of the retirement account, because those retirement accounts are protected for both of us no matter what, because they're in the income bucket. but resources, we get to protect more, about 150,000. Also, if I'm married and I go in, I'm still limited to $50 a month at the nursing home, but my spouse gets about $3,800 a month that they get to keep in income to keep the house going and do their things. And if my spouse needs more than that, then my attorney is going to help me negotiate with the Medicaid office to get my spouse more. So I hope I haven't lost you so far. But so if I'm going into the nursing home, here's Emilee, I'm going in. And if I'm the single person, I got my house, I got my car, and that 100,000, I will be privately paying. So that 100,000, I have to spend it down to the 35. So they call that the spend down. The Medicaid spend down is the term for it. So if I file for Medicaid, they're going to deny my application. They're going to say, Emilee, you're over resourced. You have too much money. You know you're only supposed to keep 35,000. So once you spend down that 100, you can apply again. And that 100,000, if she's talking to me as the attorney, I'm going to say, oh, great. Okay, you know, I've got this money sitting here. I've got the $65,000 sitting here. I want to spend it on things that are going to give me the most bang for my buck. So maybe I'm going to upgrade my car, right? Because my car is an exempt resource. My Medicaid can't get to it. Maybe I'm going to put new windows on my house. So when it sells for a better price. I'm going to prepay for my funeral. So that expense is already covered. I might prepay for some of my legal fees. I might set up a trust. I might do some things with that money so I'm not just shoveling it over to the nursing home. Not that we don't want nursing homes to be paid. We do. They provide wonderful service. But your money is your money and you want to use it as wisely as you can, because at that point you're probably not making a lot more. What you got at that point is what you have, unless you're playing the lottery and you get lucky. So we want to be careful with it. So the Medicaid application gets filed. It's always retroactive. So if I didn't have money when I came into the nursing home, Medicaid will retroactively go back and pay for my entry. And that's always dependent on lots of facts, but it's not a difficult process to go to. It's more a stressful process to go through. And you do not need an attorney to do it with you, but sometimes people like to have someone who's been through it a couple of times to help them. And so when I talk about that Medicaid application, that the nursing home will help you with it, and how I told you that you get to protect 35,000, the nursing home, that's not their job to tell you that. They're not your lawyer, they're not your advocate for your financial purposes. So they're not going to say, oh yeah, you don't have to give us that 35. They're just going to say, keep paying us. Not because they're bad, but just because those are New York laws that you hire an estate attorney to help you with. So I just want to say they're not bad and they'll help you for free, but always get like a consultation or know what you're doing when you're going in to file those applications, because it's a big deal. Um, I want to talk to you about Emilee going into the nursing home. And let's say Emilee's going into the nursing home, but about 3 years ago, I gave my kids some money. I came in, my grandpa died, and I have 3 kids, and I gave them each $50,000 as like an amazing Christmas gift one year because I came into money. Well, when I file that Medicaid application with the nursing home, it's a short application, but they're gonna ask me to attach the last 5 years, 60 months of all my financial transactions. So I have to get those like from Key Bank or Chase Bank or my credit union. And for the 401ks and IRAs, they want to see all the 5 years of all the transactions. They want to see, did I take a loan watch for everything? They go through all your financial transactions and they ask you to highlight anything that's over $2,000 and then explain to them what it's for. And so if I made gifts to my kids 3 years ago for 50 grand each, they're going to say, oh, Emilee, you are such a nice, generous mom. But if not for you giving them that money, you'd be paying us that money. So we're going to penalize you for those $50,000 gifts. And instead of you now, remember you and your spouse, you got to protect about 150,000. Now you don't get to protect that anymore because we're going to subtract the 150 you gave to your kids from the amount we were going to let you protect. So it's if you have given money, it's okay. Like in life, we do these things. It's a little bit of a gray area, because here's another thing. If I was the kind of person that made gifts every year to my kids, $5,000 at Hanukkah and $5,000 every birthday, my lawyer, when I file my Medicaid application, will be able to file a letter with my application to say, listen, Emilee was making those gifts as part of her planned giving. She did it every year. She didn't just do it once and then she was done. She did it as part of planned giving. This wasn't part of trying a scheme to try to get money out to protect it. And usually they will say that, okay, those are forgiven because it was lower dollar amounts and it was part of a planned giving and an attorney backed you up on it. And they'll let those be protected. But it always just depends. So be generous with your family members. I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying if you file the application, they're going to take a look at those. Let's say I'm Emilee and I don't have the $100,000 in the bank account and I still gave the money a long time ago. What they're going to do is say, well, do you have retirement accounts? If you've got the IRA that was generally protected, you could take money out of the IRA to get rid of that penalty. But really, they issue you a penalty and you try to figure out how to erase the penalty, how to resolve it. And newsflash, if you can't, they're not going to kick you out of the nursing home because we don't do that in the United States. You're always going to have a place to stay. It just means you're going to die and you won't have a lot of money. But if you don't have a lot of money anyway, who cares? So if you need some perspective, call me and I'll help you figure out your situation. Another thing that happens, people will get real upset at the end, like towards the end, about money that they owe to people. They say, I've got this big medical bill, I've got these big bills. Sometimes those just do not get paid in the end. I like for everyone to get paid in the end, but I don't want people at the end of their lives to spend their time stressing about those kinds of things if it really isn't going to affect their estate in the end. So again, if you ever want to talk about that, happy to talk about consumer debt and those kinds of things and how it figures into your estate. Next part we're going to talk about is how to protect your home. So remember, there's that 5-year magic number for Medicaid applications. The key is to make transfers before 5 years. How do you know when you're going into a nursing home? We don't, but we sort of know the younger we are, the less likely it is. So a lot of people will protect their home by transferring it to somebody else. There's a few options to do this. The two main options are to update your deed to have what's called a life estate deed. 2 words, life, L-I-F-E, estate, E-S-T-A-T-E, life estate deed. You can Google it. That's the kind of deed in New York where I can add one of my kids onto my deed, or 2 of my kids, or 3 of my kids. I have to let my kids know because they have to sign off to agree. And what the deed will say is Emilee is transferring her home to these kids, but she's reserving life use. And that means I still retain the burdens and benefits of ownership during my life. I still have to pay the property taxes and the maintenance. My kids are not responsible for anything until I die. However, if I'm in the nursing home and my income's $50 a month, my kids are going to want to pay the taxes so they don't lose the home in a foreclosure. But they are not legally responsible to do it. They would just want to do it because it's their future inheritance. But so the life estate deed, you have to do it 5 years before you need nursing home care. Your kids sign off and you sign off. You can still sell your house in the future with that kind of deed, except for your kids have to sign off because now they have a future interest. So they can't sell it without your permission, but you can't sell it without their permission. So you have to have a family where you kind of agree on things for that to happen. But that's a beautiful, very inexpensive way to protect your house. But now you're locked in it with your kids. So, and it doesn't have to be kids. I keep saying kids. I don't think that everybody has kids, but whoever that person is, you wouldn't do it with like a charity. If you're using a charity, you want to have a trust. And if you've got more than 2 kids, even if you have 2 kids and they don't get along well, I recommend people have trusts. And let me tell you what that looks like. I would update my deed and I would say, I, Emilee, am transferring my deed to my trust. And a trust is like an alter ego for me. And anything I put in my trust, I'm wrapping it up in the trust to say that now the trustee is the owner of that trust. And this leads us right into Medicaid trusts. There's 2, so a trust really, it is just a document, just a document. It might say it's the Emilee Lawson Hatch Trust. And if I'm the trustee of my trust, then it's generally a revocable trust that I can change anytime because I'm still in charge of it. If I'm the trustee, I manage the money, it's all me. That's the most common kind of trust in New York. That trust is used for any of my clients downstate. They always have a revocable trust because they don't want to have to go through the court system there for their family members when they pass away because the courts are real overloaded in downstate New York. In upstate New York, if your family goes through the court process, through the probate process, so that's after you die, whether you have a will or not, If there's any assets in your name alone without a beneficiary or a joint account holder, if you have something in your name, it has to go through court to get to somebody else. Unless you have a beneficiary on it or a joint account holder. That's the way it works. And then your will, if you do have a will, that's going to cover any of those assets without a beneficiary and without a joint account holder. And your will say, I give them all to my kids or to my friend or to charity. And then your executor, the person who's named as executor under your will, the nominated executor, would file your original will with the court because they're not officially the executor until the judge appoints them as the executor. And then they'll get a fancy piece of paper that says, I'm the executor, and they'll be able to sell your house, go access your bank accounts, and access all your funds and file your tax returns. A lot of people want to avoid that process because it takes time, takes a minimum of 7 months in upstate New York. Downstate New York, it takes longer just because the court system takes longer down there. But upstate New York, it's about 7 months, minimum 7 months. A lot of people want to use trusts to avoid that process. And a will is a unilateral contract that just you sign. I sign my will, but in order for it to be executed upon, a judge has to approve it through the probate process. And the word probate is a fancy Latin term that means to prove. So once your will is filed with the court and the judge has said, yep, this is signed properly, it's an original, it's all good, and they've accepted it, then your will has been admitted to probate, and now your executor has to follow the terms of your will, and they have to report to the court about everything that they do. That is all fine and good, but the court system is a place of last resort. Most people don't want to go to court, and the court doesn't want to see most people, right? They want you to plan to avoid going to court. And to do that, you need beneficiaries on everything, joint account holders, or you need a trust. And when people have a bunch of beneficiaries or they just want privacy, they will pick a trust. Because a trust, like that will, is a unilateral contract. A trust is a bilateral contract. The person creating the trust is signing it and the trustee is signing it. It's a contract to avoid court, and sometimes it's a contract for other things. If it's a Medicaid asset protection trust, it's a trust to avoid court, and it's a trust to protect any assets in that trust from future nursing home or other creditors. Those are beautiful trusts. So a Medicaid asset protection trust is a certain type of irrevocable trust. Irrevocable meaning you can't change it after you sign it. I'll just tell you, I'll put an asterisk there. Attorneys can change anything, but in your mind, I want you to think you can't change it. So the revocable trust, remember, if it's revocable and you can change it, you're the trustee. You have control. If it's irrevocable, you are not going to be the trustee. You're going to appoint someone else. It might be a family member, might be a friend, might be your attorney, might be your accountant, but someone else is going to be in charge of that money. And the trust will say they have to use some of the money for your benefit. And if it's a Medicaid asset protection trust, it's going to say in the terms to the trustee, it's going to say any income generated by this trust has to go to Emilee. So if they start renting out my house as a VRBO, I have to receive that income, even if I'm in the nursing home, and then any excess after the house expenses are paid, any excess net income would go to the nursing home if I'm in there. So any income would come to Emilee, but the principal and the remaining stuff in the trust, it says this trustee can never give it back to me. I have put it in this trust so that it'll be used for me while I'm living, and then it's going to go past to my beneficiaries after I'm gone. Those trusts are beautiful and they get special blessings from New York State because they have these specific provisions. And if they have the specific provisions, then when you file your Medicaid application, and if I gave my house over 5 years before, on the application it says, do you have a trust? And you're going to say yes. And it's going to say, when did you establish this trust? And you're going to tell them the date. And then they're going to say, when were transfers made to it? And you have to show them the 5 years of statements. And you'll say, oh, they were all made over 5 years ago. And they say, good for you. Bummer for us. We don't get those assets, but good for you. Because that's just part of the game. It's part of what our system is. I don't make these rules, but we all try to live within it. So if you can make transfers and you have people that you can make transfers to, it's always a good thing because if you get it out of your name, then it's for that next generation. Trust can be very flexible. Um, And I see a lot of people have them. I'm not the kind of attorney that thinks everybody needs a trust. If you've got like one kid or one person in your life that you want to get everything, you probably don't need a trust because you can name them on everything. But then you have to think, well, what if that person was gone? What if we died in an accident together? That's what a trust or a will does, is they can name a next level of beneficiaries, right? If my son dies, well, I want the things to go to his children. And if his kids are little, I need to say in my will that, it goes to those kids, but it goes in trust for them. And I appoint so and so to be the trustee. Maybe I want the surviving parent of those grandkids to be the trustee, or maybe I don't. Maybe I want it to be one of my other kids, but there's all sorts of iterations, and that's all client specific based on what you need. So I'm just going to look at the time real quick. Okay, it's 1:37. We've got time for questions, and I'm hoping you guys have some burning ones. So I'm going to stay on. If you want to unmute yourself, you can just speak up.
So this is Tom. Came in a minute late there at the beginning. CNA's in the home, $3,500 a week. That's not 24/7, is it?
It can be. I've definitely paid it. So I sometimes coordinate that care for folks. It depends. So if you're paying 25, 26 bucks an hour, that generally can get you through. Sometimes it's less. Sometimes I've seen people hire aides at like 15 bucks an hour. It just depends on who you can get in your life. Sometimes it's much more than that. Good question, Tom.
Okay, I'm working on others. I'll let somebody else jump in.
Okay.
Okay, my question is a TIA 403B an income or a resource if it was paid for by your employer instead of receiving a regular pension?
It's considered income. And that's a great question. It brings me to another question about Roth accounts. So Roth accounts are retirement accounts that have been taxed. All the tax has been paid on them. So when you take out the money, you just get it. On a Roth account, they have different requirements, and you don't have the same distribution requirements. And so on Roths, if you're not required to take distributions under the law, but if you apply for Medicaid, a facility will force you to annuitize that account to make it spit off income. And then the remainder still would be protected, but you still have to give them something from that account. Just want to make that clear.
I have a question. You mentioned that money in retirement accounts and your house are protected from Medicaid. But is it true that when you die, any money that's made from the sale of your house or any money that's left in your retirement account needs to go to Medicaid to pay back all that they paid?
Good question. About the retirement accounts, no, they will not get your retirement accounts. They can't put a lien on your retirement accounts. But the answer is maybe. If I'm single, Emilee, and I'm going into the nursing home and I have my house, when I die, they will put a lien on the house for the amount they paid for my care. They will get to the value of the house. So they won't make me sell it while I'm alive, but they will put a lien on it after I die. So before, when it's sold and the money's going to beneficiaries, before that money goes to them, Medicaid's going to get paid back. If I'm married, my spouse gets that house free and clear. If you are married, that house is going to go to your spouse. Or if you have a disabled child living with you, or there's another exception. If one of my kids has to be a child, can't be a friend. If one of my kids decides to live with me and they've lived with me for at least 2 years before I go into a nursing home, and we can say, well, while they were living with me, the only reason I wasn't going into a nursing home is because they were caring for me. There's something called the caregiver child exception, and that house can be transferred to them free and clear, and it's an exempt asset at that point. So the situations depend, but good question.
So let's say I'm in a nursing home, Medicaid is paying for me, my spouse is living in the house. You're saying that when my spouse dies, Medicaid can't get the money from the house?
If you die, if you're the person in the nursing home and you die first, the spouse
Right.
keeps the house. But
And
if
what
you're in the
happens when
nursing
the
home,
spouse dies?
if you're in the nursing home and your spouse dies, you lose the protection for the house. You lose it, and now it's owned by the person in the nursing home only. and they don't need it protected anymore for the spouse that's at home. And so now that house is up for grabs and Medicaid would put a lien on it. That's why, again, the trust is real helpful. So even the trust is to protect it from going through the probate system and to protect it for the next generation. It doesn't protect it for the spouses. Spouses already have the protection. It's really the Medicaid trust is a gift for someone else. You're trying to preserve the asset for them.
So let's look at the other direction. I'm in the nursing home. My spouse is living in the house. I die in the nursing home. My spouse lives in the house for another 10 years. When my spouse dies, can the house go to the kids, or does Medicaid then
It
come and
will.
get the money?
Yeah, it'll go straight to the kids. If that spouse is living there at your death, Medicaid has nothing. They don't care anything forward about that, about your costs. It's only your spouse's house. They like, so in Florida, they call it a homestead exemption. We don't call it that exactly here. But if in your situation, your spouse gets the house and even 10 years, 5 years, 1 year passes, they don't get to come back and put a lien on the house for anything. It will go to your kids.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have a question. You said your income is protected, let's say from a nursing home or is it whatever. So let's say you have Social Security coming in, RMDs. Protected means they can't access your Fidelity account or whatever, but they can get your monthly income coming in and that goes directly to them, correct?
Yes, if you're in the nursing home, the monthly income can be set up to go directly to them, and you're the nursing home person. You only keep $50 a month of that income. If you have a spouse at home, they keep about $3,800 a month of that income.
But they can't go out and, let's say, dip into your RMDs account, your Fidelity account or whatever.
They can't do anything without your permission, but those RMDs are considered part of your income. So at the end of the year, if you get a $10,000 RMD and it puts you over the monthly income, your spouse over the monthly income of the 3,800 and then the $50 for you, you're going to have to give them the RMDs over that amount.
All right, that clarifies it. That's what I thought.
Yeah. So Medicaid says we will pay for a lot of your care, but if you have some income or if you're over-resourced, we want you to contribute that towards the care. Part of the issue is that they actually just bumped up all these exemptions, and the numbers, they sound pretty low, but they just bumped them up dramatically about a year and a half ago. But it's still not enough to keep up with people's costs of living. It's just not. But New York's in a pretty generous state compared to others.
I have a question.
Mhm.
This is all about Medicaid, basically. And if one thinks one has enough assets that they would never be able to use Medicaid, but then of course it turns out that the assets disappear sooner than they think. If you don't expect to need Medicaid, but then you live longer in the nursing home and you wished you'd done it, how does one prepare for that when you think you're going to be able to pay your own way, but you live longer?
Yeah, I'll say two things about it. This sort of planning, like Medicaid planning, it's really like insurance, right? You do it hoping you never need it. But if you do need it, you really wished you would have had it. So I would say for most people, if you have good people, if you have someone good you can name as a trustee of your trust, there's no harm in doing the planning. It costs you some money. You have to go through the mental anguish of doing it, but then you're protected. Some people that will never ever need Medicaid, instead of doing an irrevocable trust, we do revocable trusts for those folks. It's more common for people to do revocable trust planning and keep control of their assets than to do an irrevocable trust. Both are really popular. If someone waits and they don't do any planning and then they're sort of a surprise and they need help, they've probably already spent down their money at that point. And so they don't need to do any planning. I will say some folks, there's another kind of planning I want to mention in case you want to Google around about it. It's called promissory note planning. It's a kind of planning where there has been a catastrophe. Someone has had a stroke and they're going into a nursing home like tomorrow. They've done no planning and they've got some assets. They can do kind of a plan where they loan their assets to another person, a family member, a friend, somebody else. I've got my $1 million and I'm going to loan it to someone else. And that person pays me back monthly for that money. And then that income goes to the nursing home. And if you have that system, it's like a promissory note. Someone's paying you with your own assets. You made a gift to them and you can preserve some assets that way. It's a real technical kind of planning. I don't generally do it anymore because I would say generally clients need to, usually the attorney, when you make that sort of promissory note plan, if you even miss one payment, Medicaid won't respect the plan. So usually an attorney's office is helping someone set that up. And every month the attorney is making the payments to this, accepting the payments and handling it. And so it's really complicated and it's pretty expensive planning. But if anyone wants a recommendation on who to call, I'm happy to give you a name and number of somebody that does that. I find it's usually not worth it for most people at that point.
I have a question. If you have a fair amount of resources, and it would last, say, for 10 years, uh, uh, so can you avoid uh, doing the Medicaid planning until the time you go into the nursing home, for example, and pay for it for 5 years, and then make your plans then, and it'll still be 5 years before you actually apply for the Medicaid?
Yeah, as long as so number one, you don't have to do any Medicaid planning at all. You can just on your scheme, you can just privately pay until you can't anymore, and then you would file for Medicaid. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to do any sort of planning. Yeah.
But if during that time that you're paying down your assets, if you're making gifts and things like that, the 5-year rule will apply retroactive from whenever you do apply.
That's
Is
right.
that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you've got enough to pay for 5 years before you go into the nursing home, the uh, the safe thing to do is to get your house in order, so that 5 years hence, when your money does start to run out, then you're protected.
Then you're
Or
ready. At least you got to protect a bunch of it before you
yeah,
spend. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
I have a hypothetical here based on a family experience. If two people come to a nursing home, one that has a revocable and the other has an irrevocable trust, the nursing home would, let's say, give preference or would prefer to bring in the revocable trust because they don't want to get involved with the irrevocable.
Oh, that's interesting. It's less about the trust and it's more about who's going to privately pay. Because the nursing home gets more for people that privately pay than people that pay on Medicaid, because Medicaid pays a reduced rate. So it's not really about the kind of trust, because there's still a lot of people that go in with an irrevocable trust to protect their home, but maybe they still have lots of cash and they're paying privately out of the cash for a while. And so it depends. They want private pay people in there. That's usually who gets priority. And sometimes I tell people, listen, even if you have a trust protecting all of your assets, be prepared that if you want to get into the nursing home you want, that you are going to pay privately for a little bit of time, that you're going to pay. Even 2 months can get you in the door places sometimes, rather than, okay, we're going to put you on the wait for a Medicaid bed. So a lot of times I'm telling clients and telling their kids, no, you might want to spend 50, 60, 100 grand to get into the place that you want and pay for a few months privately, and then you can convert to a Medicaid bed. It's the same bed. It's the same situation. It's just, how you're paying.
So what is the I mean, I realize you can't be very specific, but how long is the wait for a Medicaid bed?
Every
Generally?
facility, it just depends. Every facility is different. There's definitely higher waits for Medicaid beds than for private beds. But here's what happens. If I'm in the hospital and they need a nursing home, right? A lot of times that is how people get into nursing homes. If they've ended up at the hospital for something. It's a fall or it's a memory, whatever it is, they're there. And the hospital has determined it's not safe to release them to go home unless they home, or that's when the kid is saying, I can't care for mom at home anymore. We need more help at this point. Of course, anyone can leave against medical advice, but if the hospital determines you're not cognitively able to make those decisions, they're gonna keep you there, you know? So, but when they have you there and they're trying to figure out where you're gonna go next, they're gonna find out what your assets are. The hospital asks, sometimes people don't tell them anything, but the hospital's goal is to get you to a safe place. So they're gonna call, and if they determine you need nursing home care, they're gonna call around to the nursing homes and they'll get you in whether you're private pay or Medicaid if they don't know your information. But if they know, they're going to put you on the Medicaid list and they'll find you a bed. There's beds for people, but the nursing home you get into might not be the one you want to stay at, but it might be the one you have to start at because the hospital needs their bed available. And this is the nursing home that is available. People pass away. Luckily, it's a industry that's transitional, right? People are passing away all the time and people are moving in. Yeah, it's changing all the time. So those wait lists, they're turning over all the time. But you might, if you're trying to get into one place, they might have a 7-month wait list. And so maybe you're going to go somewhere else for a few months before you can get in.
I'm wondering about.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Just the difference between my assets and my spouse's assets. Let's say I have no money in the bank, a lot of money in retirement, and I'm in a nursing home and I've spent down. Can they start taking my spouse's retirement? Can they start taking my spouse's assets?
Yes, they won't take the principal of his retire or her retirement assets, but they will take the RMDs because it's your combined. If you're married, you're responsible for each other. So it's your combined income and it's your combined resources. So yes, if you're married to someone, you are responsible for paying costs towards their nursing home care. There
But
is an
only the
option.
RMDs.
No, all their income. So your income that comes in, if you're married, they can get to both of your social security, your RMDs, your dividends, all of the income that you have coming in
But then
and
my
your
spouse can't
resources.
pay for the house, can't pay for the house stuff.
That's if you're a single person.
Okay,
Your spouse is going to be able to use their 3,800 to pay for whatever they want. So
okay.
even if you're sort of impoverished and you don't have much in your column, Medicaid will definitely tell your spouse, like if they've got a couple of homes, they're going to say, okay, you get to protect one of those, but you're going to have to sell the other one to pay for your spouse's nursing home care.
Okay.
There is something, because sometimes people are in situations where they haven't lived with their spouse in a long time. Maybe they're not really married anymore. They are under the eyes of the law, but they're not really. You can there's something that you can sort of abandon your spouse. And if you can prove abandonment, that you don't have to, that's called spousal refusal, and you don't have to pay for each other's care. But that's based on the facts and circumstances and does not apply to most people.
I don't want to put you on the spot personally, but if, for example, this extremely helpful the presentation that you're doing, somebody said, "Oh God, I've got to start planning ahead," but they don't remember and they didn't take notes, and so they want to talk to an attorney about a plan. How many hours should that? I mean, I know you can't be specific, but what would be a simple plan? And should you specifically go to a trust and estates attorney? And how much is it going to cost? And is it going to be an ongoing fee?
Great questions. I will be fully transparent about what our firm does because it's just one firm's perspective. There's lots of different attorneys around that you can go to. At our firm, we charge hourly for most work, but for trusts, we do a flat fee. And that is because the fees were so wild when we were doing trusts because it's so dependent. So we took a few years and we did an analysis of how much it was costing, and then we did a discount. And so we would be in line with what other attorneys charge. If someone is doing basic estate planning, so they're doing a will, power of attorney, healthcare documents, funeral documents, and just basic stuff, and they want just advice about it all, it's going to cost about $2,000 with our office. It's about $2,000. If they do, and if they need a deed, so if they're going to do a life estate deed, there's another kind of deed called a transfer on death deed. Whatever the deed is, we charge a flat fee at our office. It's $1,500. So maybe someone's doing their will and they're doing a life estate deed, so maybe their total is $3,500. If someone's doing a trust at our office, the flat fee is $6,000. That includes the will, the power of attorney, those, one real estate transfer, and it includes 1 to 2 trusts. If you're doing an irrevocable trust, and even if you're a single or a couple, you just need one. But if you're a single or a couple, you always need your own revocable trust if that's the choice you're going to make. If you do revocable, you get your own because you're the trustee of your own money, just like you're in charge of your own money now. So at our firm, it's a flat fee of 6,000. That's the most common thing that people do is call us about trusts because it's all inclusive. And then if they need to make changes to their trusts in the future, update trustees, because even irrevocable, you still retain the right to make certain updates to your trust. You can't ever be the trustee of it if you're going to keep the protection. But if you didn't like your trustee, you can certainly change it to someone else. And for simple changes in the future, we charge $200 for so you might call me in 5 years and say, I want to change something. And it's like a de minimis fee for updating it in the future. There's no ongoing costs for any of it. Because we're not doing anything ongoing. Once you put it into the trust, there's nothing to do until either you get sick or you pass away. And then it's your family members that are doing it. They may call us for advice, at which time I'm so happy to talk to them. Usually we charge hourly, right? If they're calling and saying mom or dad just passed away or they're going into a nursing home, I get lots of calls like that. And then we just charge hourly because they might just need a 15-minute call with me to explain the situation, or they might want me to hold their hand and go to the nursing home with them. Everyone is a little different in what they ask of our office.
Well, if you
But
don't,
so I think that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
if you're not quite sure what you need, do you do an
Yeah.
initial consult?
We do a consults where they're not complimentary. We charge our time. So the firm charges me at $445 right now is my rate. And so whatever that is, usually we just apply it to their flat fee. But if they don't, they just get a bill for that time. Sometimes people call me and they say, hey, I moved from another state. I think I already have my documents. Can we review them together? We do a review and we talk about it, and they just charge for my time and then they're done because maybe they don't need to do anything.
Right.
So that's how we charge. But some attorneys just charge hourly. Lots of attorneys do free consultations. By the time if they've come to a presentation and they know our stuff, they usually have an idea of what they want. And once I hear about their situation and the facts, I can make a recommendation. I generally don't make real strong recommendations to clients because it's about you and what you want and the goals that you have. There are people that say, I don't want to protect anything for anyone. I just want to make sure that someone helps me manage it at the end of my life. Maybe I don't have somebody, maybe I don't have children, or the kids I have or live out of state, or they're not really here. And I just want someone to help me. That's a big part of what we do too, is help people that don't have another point person.
Thank you for that really helpful answer.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Okay, so I will just say if anyone needs anything, my name is Emilee Lawson Hatch. You can Google me. I am happy to answer questions. There's a lot of trust and estate attorneys. This is a great area of law. It's one of those that everybody needs someone like me. I also want to say, you don't always need someone like me all the time. You are allowed to draft your own will. You're allowed to draft your own trust. I just also want to say I represent a lot of attorneys that don't even want to draft those on their own because they don't feel comfortable. In terms of law, this area of law is where more malpractice cases are filed than any other area because it gets complicated. And even though the way I talk about it, I'm like, oh, it's so easy. It's so easy. You can just do it. There is some finesse to it. So if you do draft your documents on your own, like you can go online, you can get QuickBooks for $99, I think, and draft your will. Have an attorney meet with you to tell you what you drafted because it might be perfect and good, but if it's not, don't sign it, right? You want to make sure that it says what you want. So sometimes people will say, I drafted my own documents, I'm going to send them to you. And then I will say what these documents say, what they're going to do. And if it matches what the client wants, we'll help them sign them all. And so that's okay too. It's more about just getting something in order. That's important to just get something in place. So I'm available, reach out anytime, and I'm happy to come back if there's other topics you'd like me to talk about. You can tell I know how to talk and I'm happy to do it.
So what topics would you recommend for a group in our demographic for the future?
Yeah, people might want to talk about, I could tell some stories about interesting trusts that apply to different people's situations. I've done a lot of presentations about end of life planning. Sometimes I do those hand in hand with a doctor or a nurse practitioner that's in palliative care. Sometimes people ask me to come talk about planning for the next generation or planning for pets specifically. Let's see. Anything you want to talk about related to trusts and estates, I'd be happy to.
So you're willing, I'm speaking as the former program chair, you're willing to do these things, correct?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I love it. It's real fun. Sharing the information is great.
I'm glad that we recorded this
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was, there's a lot of information there.
Thank you for saying that. I know I went pretty quick. I tried to fit in as much as I could.
Actually, I particularly appreciate that because I knew it was going to be recorded and I knew that the information would be there, when I needed it and, had thought about it. But, I really like your boom, 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 boom style.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. And I have to leave because I have another commitment. But I really enjoyed your talk, Emilee.
Thank you very much. Thanks for saying that.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Emilee.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
You're
Yep.
welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good
Yeah,
stuff.
this
All
was
right.
very
Well,
helpful. Very helpful.
good.
Okay.
Good. Well, I'll hop
I'll-
off and just if you need me, reach out.
Okay.
Bye,
We will.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Laureen. You're the one who set this up, Laureen, right? Thank you.
Well, it was my idea.